this particular lesson is we are talking about a God of Israel that is dealing with a people that were idol worshipers. The Syrians were not believers in Jehovah God. They were idol worshipers. But in the midst of their no relationship with God, it frightened me, but yet and still it enlightened me that the text said, because by him the Lord had given deliverance unto Syria. So, once again, we see God's hand dealing with an individual that he was preparing to establish relationship with him in a godless nation, a nation that did not know him. Naaman was the captain of the host. When it came to the Syrian army, he was the man. Nobody that was more well known in all of the nation of Syria than Naaman. He was known for his ability, his skills. Naaman was a hero. He was able to lead the Syrian army victory after victory for their enemies. And even at this time, Israel was captive and not. Israel had messed up. And God always had a way of dealing with Israel when they didn't put him in his right place. He allowed their enemies to come and bring havoc amongst the nation. Sad to say it that even in our day and time, God's methods have not changed. Most times when he really wants to get our attention, he'll send something to hold you captive so that you can't get away. Naaman was in charge. But it's interesting to note that the writer would take the time to record certain specifics concerning Naaman, and I share this with you. As bad as he was, as tough as he was, as great of a military strategist as he was, as strong as he was, his armor was covering up something. His armor shielded the rest of those that fought with him from a seat. Please note the difference between the practices of the nations. According to the Hebrew or the Jewish world, if you were a leper, you were no longer allowed to live amongst the people. You had to pick up residence and take up residence with leper colonies. It was really a banishment for you to go somewhere and die. Our text gives you the difference in understandings of how the world perceived leprosy versus the practicing faith of Judaism. Naaman was the captain of the host, had armor on, his condition had not been totally revealed because he covered it up. But the scripture gives us great and all that he led in military preparation. His scripture says he was the captain of hosts. He was this, he was that. But he was a leper. It really kind of gives note to some of us if we're able to take off all of our armor, all the things that we have covered up. Who would we find if they take off your mask? Who is? Oh, let me. I gotta hit this because it's true. Naaman, he didn't have the advantage of hospitals where they could keep you in states of incubation where you're away from all. He didn't have that. They didn't have the privilege of medicine that we have of this hour, which will take away your symptoms, even though you might have the condition. They didn't have the advantages of pain pills. Oh my goodness, can I just talk for a minute? Because you take away some of our pain pills, in this house right now, you might bump into somebody that would kill you. But we have the advantage of medication in this hour and this season that can dull the pain so that you might live a life as close to normality as possible. Naaman did not have the privilege of having that kind of medication to dull his pain. For leprosy was a skin disease that ultimately went beyond the skin and penetrated to the core of the bone structure, as to which it was nothing for a leper to just lose fingers as his disease got worse. His toes would fall off. But in the midst of all of his suffering, he still had the ability to lead an army. I don't know whether it was his anger from his condition that made him so effective, but whatever it was, he was well respected by the nations that knew of him because he was such a great strategist. But when all was said and done, after all of his exploits and all of his greatness, he was still a leper. I gotta mess with us a little bit because sometimes I don't care how many titles you get. I don't care how many positions you obtain. If we take off all the armor, who are you? I gotta take my time with this in a few minutes. I'm always there. It's interesting. He could fight an army, but was unable to fix his own disease. How about, ready for this? How about the pressure to hide something that stinks? mastered the ability to cover up what stinks in us. We cover it up with image. We cover it up. And I got to say, many times we cover it up with the word, with who the word says we are. But we have not embraced the word to become what it says we are. You've mastered how to keep it hidden. But deeply on the inside, it gnaws at us every day. I know who I've painted my picture to be, but I wrestle every night with the picture that I really am. When it was all said and done, he was still the leper. Oh, don't worry, I'm going to preach in a few minutes. I got to deal with this text from the way that it needs to be discussed. He hid it under his armor. And it's interesting. Only his maid saw it. I got to mess with this because this is interesting. Only his maid saw it. And what happened, I want you to understand that his maid was a Israelite, a Jewish woman that was held captive. She was a slave. She was captive. The armies of Naaman had snuck on the Jewish side and captured a few young people, and they captured this young woman and they gave her to Naaman, and Naaman had her to go serve his wife. But she was great because of who she knew. Can I mess with this? The real test of character is what you do with power. If you use power to build you, we understand the limits of your character. Because your character is focused mainly on who you paint yourself to be. But when you've been given power and you choose to use that power to benefit others, then we understand the core of who you are. We understand that you understand who Jesus really is. Oh, I'm getting close to preaching. God allowed Naaman to take captive what would be a blessing to him. What do you mean? She was held captive by divine assignment. Oh my. I gotta mess with that just for a minute. She did not plan her life to be taken captive, but God had a plan to get to Naaman, so she became the instrument, the vehicle that God would use in order to get Naaman to God. Not everybody has character like that, because when they become captive, the first thing they focus on is, I'm a captive, and my main concern is getting out myself. But in this young woman, in this case, she was held captive, but did not forget the God that allowed her to be taken captive. Oh, Pastor, are you trying to tell me? I'm just talking about, she had a problem. She had a problem with a purpose, and her purpose was to be there to lead Naaman to the man of God, but there was still her problem because she was still held captive. Okay, let me take this further. So God had basically a purpose for her problem. Oh, I know somebody ain't gonna like this in a minute, because there are a lot of us that don't understand why we have the problems that we have. But when you told God yes, did you really know what you were telling God yes to? You weren't just telling God yes to the benefits. We believe that, now that I'm saved, now I'm going to be blessed. It might take a real spin. God might save you specifically to be the vehicle to save others, which comes at a cost. Which means that your plans, your strategy is scrapped. Because God has now taken his strategy and replaced it where you had one. And so now you're dealing with a problem by divine assignment, and you still got to recognize God in the midst of your problem. Oh, can I say, I'm going to say this. Every problem that you have, stop praying for deliverance right away. If the problem came, there's a purpose behind it. God, let me, and somebody said, what do you mean? God, let me learn everything I need to learn in this thing so I don't have to repeat this. That's what's happened to some of us. We keep repeating the first grade. We didn't learn the lessons in the first grade. And then now we think when we get in the first grade again, that we're going to be the genius of the class because we took the course. Only to find out at the end of the semester, you failed again. Because you did not learn what you were supposed to learn while you were in that class because you were too busy trying to find a way to get out of it. Oh, don't worry, I'm preaching a few minutes. I got to handle this. Because a lot of times we come to the altar. God, you said that you would deliver me. You said that you would bring me out. I'm standing here on your word. But did you ever ask God whether he wanted to bring you out at this time? I'm talking about relationship. When it comes to relationship with God, you've got to understand that he's not always going to allow you to be in the most comfortable situation. You want to mess with me? Because I will. You married that man for better, for worse? Is that right? And he's supposed to take care of you? He's supposed to provide for you? The Bible says, man, don't take care of his family is what? Worse than an infidel. Not only that, he has departed from what? The faith. Now, all of a sudden, he gets sick. He can't work now. Now you got to take care of him. What then? Now, Lord, I don't know where I messed up at. I was saved. I was a virgin when I married him. I kept myself. Now here I am with this broke down Negro. I thought he was going to take care of me. And now I got to take care of him. Is something wrong with this? Because when we address problems based upon our own view, you will never be able to see through the eyes of God what he sees. There may have been a tremendous reason why that man got sick at the time that he got sick. But you would only find that out if you endure the test of time. But if you dump him before the time, you're going to marry somebody else and they're going to get sick too. Just so you can repeat the first grade and learn that you are not in charge of you, but God is the one that orders our steps. Oh, I hope some of y'all are listening. It's probably quiet in here, because a lot of us have dumped husbands like we've dumped. No. And please don't be upset when somebody else take your sick man and he becomes a diamond in the rough. I got to mess with some of y'all, because some of y'all crazy. You know, he was sick, then some other woman come along, and he was a diamond in the rough. Now he's doing fine. He's buying her diamonds. He's looking out for her, taking her on cruises. And you sitting up there trying to take the credit for helping him get better. Yeah, well, she didn't get the worst part of his sickness. I suffered through the worst part of his sickness. And I, you know, I don't, what you should go somewhere and sit down and shut up. Because you did not see the process through. It was a problem, but it wasn't a problem unto death. Oh, I got to mess with you. You know, the text gives us to know that Naaman had a problem, but his problem was not unto death. His problem was specifically for God to get his attention. Oh, let me mess with this just a little while. And so what happens, this young woman that's there by divine destiny, held captive in a place because she was captured against her will. God sent her into a situation that was volatile and hostile, but yet and still she kept her faith in the God that had brought her to this place. She gets to this place, and now she sees Naaman, this great man, with this hidden struggle. And then she is bold enough, you know something, you got to be pretty bold to talk about, you know, somebody that can heal your husband. Listen, I know somebody can heal your husband. What? I know somebody can heal. What? He's seen the people in our world, in our side, they couldn't do nothing for him. I know somebody that can heal your husband. When you are desperate, oh, I got to mess with this for a second, because some of us have not been desperate enough. Because if we were desperate enough, it wouldn't matter the process. We would deal with the process in order to gain deliverance. We wouldn't care what people say. You know, people that can't heal you, what do you care? People that can't deliver you, what does it matter? People that have no answer for you, you know, so keep your sympathy and empathy and give me the deliverance that I need. I don't need nobody sitting around and cry with me because I'm crying. Tell me what I need to do so I can stop crying and become recovered. So they were at a point of desperation. And she says, I'm telling you, I know a man that can heal you of your condition. So finally, Naaman says, he gets the message. He says, okay, I can't heal myself. I am a leper, and if I don't do anything about this condition, ultimately it's going to end my life at some point. So he turns around and he says, okay, let me go get permission from the king. Because, mind you, they are not Jews. They're Syrians. Let me go to my king. Let him know what I've been told. And see what he can do to get me to this man, quote, quote, that has the ability to heal. So he goes to the king, and the king writes a letter to the king of Israel. The power of politics. Okay, take this letter to the king of Israel and have this man that he's got in his kingdom to heal you. So Naaman gets together, takes his armada, they go over there and they visit the king of Israel, give the king of Israel the letter. The king of Israel goes into panic because, believe it or not, even though Elisha was amongst him, he didn't even know the power of God through Elisha. So you can be the king of a nation and not know the God who controls the nation. Let me mess with this a little bit further. So the king of Israel gets in a panic. He says, I can't heal nobody. I have the authority. I can't do nothing. He thought that Syria was getting ready to pick a fight with Israel, and knowing that Naaman was the baddest man in town, he just knew, we done. We finished. We done. So he goes on and he says, okay, I'm going to send you over to Elisha. I'm going to send you over there and let him know what we need to get done. And in the meantime, he's sweating the whole time. Nervous ninny. Scared that God was not going to hear his servant. So he sends Naaman over to Elisha. Elisha hears about who's outside. He knows Naaman is a warrior, a hero to his people, a great leader, but does not even bother to come outside to talk to him. I'm just messing with y'all for a minute. Get this. Now here is great Naaman. Could have probably wiped out Israel at that point. He was so powerful. And here is this prophet inside his house that won't even come outside his house to address him, but sends his servant outside and tells him, if you want to be healed, go down to the nastiest river. Go to the river of Jordan and dip yourself 7 times. I ain't coming out to address you, no. Just go down there with your leprous self and dip yourself in the Jordan River. Now, I got to message y'all for a minute because ego is something else. Ego is what? And, you know, your ego can keep you from your destiny. I got to mess with some of y'all because a lot of us have embraced the who we are. And so the simplistics of the gospel go over our head many times because we want some complex resolve. Naaman thought that Elisha was going to come outside and speak to God. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This Syrian is here. And in order that he might believe, heal his body. He said he didn't come outside. Naaman was furious. In his mind, all these thoughts of, does he know who he's talking to? Does he realize I can send a message to the Syrian army and we can come out here and just cause havoc? He don't know me. You know how we get when, and be careful with this. We know how we get when we don't want to humble ourselves. You don't know me. You don't know, my grandmama was a cusser. My great-grandmama on my daddy's side, she was a cusser. You mess with me, I'll cuss you to kingdom come. You don't know me. Now, you were supposed to have been delivered from all of that. But because you refused to humble yourself, all these generational curses come alive because humility was not within you. Naaman was furious. First of all, he disrespected. Did I say that? Did I say that? You know, those are big words in these days and times. I don't care, whatever you don't disrespect me. To see that you disrespect me, the man in me will show you that I'll humble you. Don't you ever disrespect me like that ever again. Did I say that? In this season of the church, if we come in and we don't honor